Single mothers have no value. Okay. It's my preference. I don't want to be with a single mom. Okay. We live in a feedback system. I don't need 100 men, 10 men, 5 men to choose me. All I have to do is choose myself. And my outer reality will reflect that. Because baby, I ain't in the business of convincing. And I think these conversations that seem to only happen on social media because and they don't translate in real life. We're here, but we're not here. I think it's important to like separate what's a podcast conversation versus what people actually care about. All the men that have reached out to me as of lately have no children and want several. It's easy to debunk these regurgitated, echoed narratives. A lot of men want to control how other men see women because they don't want them to want you. They don't want them to be able to see you. They want you to go put yourself on the clearance rack. Consider the source. There's a difference between high value and high quality. High value is Scar. High quality is Mufasa. I choose me. And everything in my world chooses me too.
You know, the internet loves to talk about value. They say single mothers have none, but Brittany Renner just flipped that whole conversation on its head. She went online claiming she's choosing herself, but the reality tells a completely different story. We're talking about only $5,500 a month in child support from a millionaire ex, a short-lived relationship with Kevin Gates, and a reputation that keeps haunting her everywhere she goes. And that's the thing. While she's preaching empowerment, her actions are telling a different story. So the real question is this true self-love, or just another example of confusing attention with growth? Let's get into it. What's going on, everybody? It's your guy Shay Duke Jackson, back once again with another episode of the Celebrity Junk. Recently, Brittany Renner took to Instagram with a post that stirred quite a bit of conversation. The post, titled "Single Mothers Have No Value," tackled one of the most controversial narratives surrounding women today. Rather than staying silent, Renner decided to address the criticism directly, using her platform to challenge the stigma placed on single mothers and shed light on how damaging those assumptions can be.
Child support to Brittany Renner. This is coming off the heels of her coming out and saying that he only pays $2,500 a month. We just saw the video not too long ago of her acting a fool and somebody yelling, "You doing all this, but it's $11,000 in your kid's bank account." Like, that's not a lot of money for a little kid. Well, now that kid is going to be getting $66,000 a year from PJ Washington. And this is the price that you pay when you lay and get somebody impregnated like Brittany Renner. Now that kid is going to live a pretty decent lifestyle as long as she's not taking away from that $66,000 and doing something for herself, which we know that's a very strong possibility that that's going to happen. But for his peace, he got off light if he can keep the situation calm between those two, which is probably going to be pretty hard from the video that went viral on the internet a couple of weeks ago. Now, PJ Washington just signed an extension with the Dallas Mavericks for 4 years, $90 million. So I'm not going to come on here and say he's getting robbed, because he's making $1.3 million a month. That's not even 1% of the salary that he's making in the NBA. So that's why I say that's the price that you pay when you lay and get somebody impregnated like Brittany Renner. But once again, to all you young athletes who continue to watch me, let this be a message for you. When you get to the league, or when you start making some real money, watch who you get pregnant, because the more money you get, the more problems it will be. And you see the problems that PJ Washington has been through with Brittany Renner now being ordered to pay $5,500 a month in child support. And in my opinion, that's the price you pay.
Now, as you can see, Brittany was pointing out that plenty of men still reach out to her, some even saying they'd like to have kids with her, despite the fact that she already has a child. What she's trying to highlight is that real life doesn't always reflect what's portrayed on social media. Many men online talk as if single mothers have no value, but in reality, those same men often show interest in them. She also touched on the idea that some men try to label women as discounted once they've had children, as if their worth has somehow dropped. But true value isn't determined by others, it's about self-worth and confidence. Believing in your own value is essential. However, there's also a social perception issue. When a woman's child's father publicly chooses another partner, people tend to view her negatively, whether fair or not. And that's the dynamic Brittany was addressing, the gap between how people talk about single mothers and how they actually treat them. I want to take a moment to shout out DrizzTV1 on TikTok. Make sure you check him out, because he's been making some really insightful points about this situation. Now, let's be real. Yes, PJ Washington made a mistake having a child with Brittany Renner, and that's something most people can agree on. But what often gets overlooked is what happened afterward. PJ moved on and built a new life with someone else, a life Brittany no longer has access to. Meanwhile, she ended up in a brief, chaotic situation with Kevin Gates that lasted barely 2 months. And when you look at the bigger picture, Brittany's child support, about $5,500 a month, doesn't exactly reflect her former partner's massive income. We're talking about a man who signed a $90 million deal. That's over $1 million per month. In that context, her share seems relatively small. It's a reminder that being tied to wealth doesn't always mean living in luxury. But here's where many women misunderstand the conversation. They often think, oh, that doesn't apply to me, my situation is different. The truth is, once a man hears your story, he starts forming silent judgments. If your child's father is struggling or living poorly, people might see it as a mistake, something you can move on from. But if your ex is thriving, successful, and living better without you, it becomes much harder to argue that you're the one who chose yourself or that you're in control. And here's the thing, men usually won't say this out loud. They just take mental notes. They observe, connect the dots, and form opinions quietly. And that's what many women don't realize. Perception matters just as much as confidence when it comes to how others view your story. So here's how a lot of men start looking at it. They see Brittany getting only $5,500 a month in child support from a multimillionaire, and their first thought is, wait, if that's all she's getting, why would I do anything extra for her? To them, it doesn't make sense. They think, if a guy like PJ Washington isn't giving her more, what does that say about the situation? Then they look at her track record, from PJ Washington to Kevin Gates, and start connecting the dots. To many men, that kind of leap raises eyebrows. It's not just about the names involved, but the pattern it reveals. You go from a promising young athlete, a man with structure and upper, to a rapper with a reputation for chaos and unpredictability. To the average observer, that's not evolution, it's regression. It makes people wonder whether the choices are guided by genuine connection or by a cycle of chasing excitement and validation. From a distance, it looks like someone who once had access to stability and growth but traded it for turbulence and attention. And when that person later starts talking about choosing herself, it feels like a contradiction. To many men, that story doesn't add up. Not because self-love isn't important, but because the actions behind the words seem inconsistent. You can't talk about empowerment while repeating the same self-destructive patterns. That message loses power when your life choices keep telling a different story. So naturally, the perception shifts. People start thinking, yeah, she's beautiful, she's charismatic, but what's beyond that? At some point, beauty and confidence alone aren't enough. Men who are focused, stable, and ambitious tend to look for qualities that complement growth, loyalty, maturity, accountability, emotional intelligence. And when they don't see those traits, they mentally categorize you as someone for fun, not for a future. That's the harsh truth of public perception. When your life is on display, people don't just hear what you say, they judge what you do. And if the story you're telling doesn't align with your reality, it creates doubt. It's not that people expect perfection, but they want to see progress. You can't keep moving backward and expect others to believe you found yourself. In the end, what men see isn't just a string of relationships, they see a pattern of missed opportunities, emotional volatility, and choices that seem to prioritize attention over growth. And once that image sticks, it's hard to change. Because in the eyes of many, she's not a woman building towards something greater. She's someone stuck in a loop, replaying the same mistakes while calling it empowerment. And here's the part that stings. A lot of women believe they are speaking empowerment when they say things like, I choose me. But experienced men, the ones who've seen and heard it all, aren't paying attention to the surface-level message. They are listening between the lines. They hear what isn't being said, the insecurity, the frustration, or the lack of accountability. Sometimes, the best response isn't to argue or defend yourself online. If you truly believe in your worth, you don't need to prove it with a post or a clapback. Silence and growth often speak louder than social media speeches. See, here's the thing. When you're truly confident in who you are, outside opinions don't shake you. I've been called all kinds of names. People have said I'm black, ugly, bald-headed, but it doesn't move me. You know why? Because once you genuinely know your worth, those words lose their power. You don't have to fight every narrative when you're secure in yourself. Someone will recognize your value regardless. That's where Brittany Renner's issue comes in. She's busy bragging about the number of men who want her, but those aren't the men she actually wants. She keeps talking about attention, but deep down, none of those guys make her feel the way PJ Washington or Kevin Gates once did. And that's the truth. What she's craving isn't the quantity of men chasing her, it's the emotional high she once got from those specific relationships. When you're only entertaining people who don't excite you, it's not real connection. It's just distraction. Even if they do everything right, it won't be enough, because they are not the person who makes you feel something. It's just like sports. Take the San Francisco 49ers, for example. They invested heavily in Trey Lance, hoping he'd be their franchise quarterback. But when injuries hit and backups like Jimmy Garoppolo and later Brock Purdy stepped in, performance became the deciding factor. Despite all that investment, Trey Lance had to go, because results matter more than potential. The same applies to relationships. It's not about who shows up or who says they want you. It's about who actually performs, who adds value, and who makes you feel fulfilled. And when you overlook that, you end up confusing attention for affection, and that's where a lot of people, like Brittany, go wrong. See, the thing is, a lot of women don't look at men the same way men look at opportunity. They don't think, here's a man who can help me grow, who's consistent, who genuinely cares, who's performing and showing up for me. Instead, many overlook those qualities, dismissing solid men because they don't spark that instant thrill. They'll say, yeah, he's nice, but he's not what I really want. And that's where the problem starts. Some women get approached by good men, men who are ready to commit, to build, to elevate them. Yet instead of valuing that, they brag about the attention. I've got guys who want me. But here's the truth, attention doesn't last forever. Those same men aren't going to wait around forever while you decide what you want. If they are valuable, they'll move on. And once they do, that window closes. What usually happens next? The woman circles back to someone like Kevin Gates, a man who's far less stable or compatible than the last one she let slip away. Each time that pattern repeats, the quality of partners drops lower. You end up dealing with men who have less ambition, less money, less respect, and yet still wonder why your dating experience feels worse than before. Then comes the complaint, men just want to put us on the clearance rack. But the reality is, sometimes women place themselves there by refusing to grow, by not learning from past mistakes. Even Brittany's situation shows that. She's earning just $5,500 a month from a man making over $1 million monthly. That tells you something, even her child's father has mentally checked out. And here's the bigger takeaway. Men, especially successful ones, have learned the game. They know many women will have a child with them without demanding marriage or commitment. So they ask themselves, why would I marry when I can have everything without it? They've cracked the code, and unless women raise their standards and protect their value early, they are the ones left paying the price later. Earning $5,500 a month in child support might sound like a lot. And sure, that's decent money for a child, but it's hardly enough to maintain the lifestyle Brittany once had. She still has to get out there and work. And let's be honest, her reputation has made it nearly impossible to attract another high-value man like PJ Washington. Everyone's seen the drama play, the impulsive choices, the online rants, the short-lived relationships. In trying to prove a point, she's ended up shooting herself in the foot. Meanwhile, PJ Washington is thriving, signing massive deals, stacking wealth, and enjoying life with someone new who's getting all the benefits Brittany could have had if she'd played things differently. Yet, Brittany still turns around and says, I choose myself. But if choosing yourself means ending up in worse situations, dating unstable men, bouncing between relationships, changing faiths, clashing on reality shows, and burning bridges online, then what exactly are you choosing? Because from the outside, it looks more like self-sabotage than self-love. And here's the reality, most men won't openly criticize it. They'll just sit back, listen, and take mental notes. When they see that kind of chaos, they don't see empowerment, they see instability. So while Brittany might be talking about choosing herself, what men hear is someone choosing struggle, confusion, and decline. If that cycle doesn't change, what happens next is predictable. More years go by, more bad decisions pile up, and the same mistakes repeat. By the time she's in her 40s or 50s, she might still be online preaching about knowing her worth, while the people she once had access to, like PJ Washington, have built empires, invested wisely, and moved on to peaceful, fulfilling lives. The question then becomes, at what point do you stop spiraling and start rebuilding? Because no matter how loudly someone says they value themselves, it means nothing if every choice they make tells a completely different story. You know, I used to be a lot more critical when I heard women, especially in our community, speaking like this. But honestly, I've reached a point where it's not even about judgment anymore. It's about concern. I genuinely feel sorry for many of these women, because deep down, it's clear they are lost. And when I see them spiraling online, saying wild things, oversharing, acting reckless, I don't even find it funny anymore. It's sad. Sometimes I just shake my head and think, what's really going on here? What are you putting in your system to be talking like this? Because some of the things being said sound so out of touch, so chaotic, it's like watching someone crash and laugh about it at the same time. You just want to step in and say, sis, slow down. You don't have to keep living like this. There's an old saying, get yourself together while the blood is still running warm in your veins. In other words, fix your life while you still have time. Stop going online exposing your pain, parading your mistakes, and calling it empowerment. You might think you sound strong or wise, but to most people watching, it doesn't come across that way. It looks messy. It looks broken. And while you're out here trying to prove something, everyone else can see what's really happening. The instability, the drama, the same cycles repeating. It's not a good look. So instead of broadcasting the downfall, maybe it's time to step back, reflect, and rebuild before it's too late. And that's how it usually ends. People just sitting back, watching from a distance, shaking their heads, and whispering, look at her. I told you. Just look at her. Down bad again. Nobody even has to say much anymore, because the situation speaks for itself. It's one of those moments where silence tells the whole story, a quiet mix of disappointment, pity, and disbelief. You can almost feel the weight of unspoken words hanging in the air as everyone looks on, realizing how far someone has fallen from the person they once could have been. It's painful to watch, especially when you remember that this is someone who once had real potential, someone who had opportunities, visibility, and influence. But instead of learning from the past, she keeps stumbling over the same choices, caught in a cycle of mistakes that only seem to grow louder and more public. And at a certain point, it's not even about judgment anymore. It's about reflection. It's about asking, why does this keep happening? Because when you see someone repeating the same behavior, no matter how many warnings or second chances they get, you realize that success alone can't save a person from self-destruction. That's the deeper lesson here. Fame, money, and beauty can open doors. But if you don't have discipline, humility, and wisdom to match, those doors eventually close. Every reckless choice chips away at credibility, every public meltdown erodes respect, and every impulsive decision becomes another headline reminding people of how far you've drifted from grace. And in this age of social media, where every move is documented and replayed, there's nowhere to hide. Your worst moments live forever online. It's also a reminder for others watching, especially young people coming up in the same world. What you post, how you carry yourself, and the kind of energy you attract all shape how people see you. Once your reputation is set, it's hard to rewrite it. The same crowd cheering for you today will turn into spectators tomorrow if you can't control your narrative. That's why humility and self-awareness are everything. They are not just buzzwords, they are survival tools. And let's be honest, when people see you spiraling, most of them won't step in to help. They'll just watch. They'll talk in group chats, make memes, maybe post a reaction video, but rarely will anyone reach out to pull you out of the mess. That's why it's so important to know who's really in your corner before the chaos begins. Because when the smoke clears and the applause fades, only a few people will still be standing beside you. The rest will just be saying, look at her. Still, I don't bring this up to clown anybody, it's more of a wake-up call. Every story like this should make us pause and think about the choices we're making. Are we learning from the past, or are we letting pride push us into repeating it? Are we protecting our peace, or chasing validation from people who don't care about us? Because in the end, clout fades, attention moves on, and all that's left is who you are when the lights turn off. So if you're listening to this, take a moment to reflect. Don't wait until people are watching you from the sidelines, saying, I told you so. Growth doesn't come from proving others wrong. It comes from becoming better than the person you were yesterday. And no matter how messy your story is, you can still rewrite it. But only if you're willing to own it, face the truth, and do the work to change. But hey, that's going to do it for today's video. It's your boy Ashay Duke Jackson. Once again with another episode of the Celebrity Junk. I truly appreciate all of you for tuning in, for supporting the platform, and for being part of these important conversations. Because it's not just about celebrity gossip, it's about learning from real-life examples and holding ourselves accountable to be better. So if you got something out of this video, go ahead and show some love. Hit that like button, drop a comment, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another upload. We're building something bigger here, a space where we can talk honestly about culture, choices, and consequences. Until next time, keep your head up, stay focused, and remember, your life is your legacy. Protect it, nurture it, and don't waste it chasing validation from people who'll be gone tomorrow.